This is a Seeking Delphi special edition, the Emotion AI Summit presented by Affectiva, recorded at the MIT Media Lab, September 2017. I'm Mark Sackler. The future lives here. One of the best things about being a futurist is going to conferences and interacting with amazing visionaries. One such meeting was the first Emotion AI Summit held on September 13th, 2017 at MIT's world-famous Media Lab in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The program was organized by a Media Lab spin-off, Affectiva. It's a company that uses artificial intelligence to create software with EQ, emotional quotient, as well as IQ. The day featured presentations and panels on a wide range of emotion AI applications and issues. Mental health and personal well-being, advertising and customer service, autonomous vehicles. These were just some of the uses covered, and the key issues included privacy and potential job loss to artificial intelligence. I was able to get brief moments with several of the 28 presenters and panelists. To begin with, we'll hear from two of Affectiva's team. First, their co-founder and CEO, Rana El-Kailoubi. And then, well, somebody with the most unusual job title I've ever heard. Rana El-Kailoubi, tell our listeners a little bit about what your message was today, what the Emotion AI Summit is, and why you, as CEO and co-founder of Affectiva, brought it together.
So we're here at the first ever Emotion AI Summit. We have over 300 people here today to talk about the future of this new frontier of artificial intelligence that's focused on building machines that can sense and adapt to human emotion. I think my biggest message today is that the merger of IQ and EQ in technology is happening. It's inevitable. And there's a lot of decisions we need to make collectively as an industry, and we're all here today to shape the future of this new tech category.
What do you think some of those key decisions are? That's a tough question, I know.
There's a lot of application areas of this technology. Some of them can be truly transformative. I mean, we saw examples from our speakers around, depression and, seizure detection. So I think, and general wellness. So I think applications around health can be really amazing. Automotive is another one because that has implications on safety. So I want us to come together as a community and kind of decide what to focus on, but also questions around ethics and data sharing and privacy. Emotions are very personal information. So how are we going to handle that?
Boise Pete, an emotional AI evangelist, interesting title, with Affectiva. Tell us a little bit about what it was you demonstrated today.
Sure. Affectiva is all about emotional intelligence and building devices that can respond to our emotions. We've been in the market for a while with our face classifiers that look at facial expressions and determine emotional states by gathering that information. But we've often been asked about how we can bring voice and speech into that. So we announced today a speech product that will analyze your speech for emotional content. And what I demonstrated on the stage was a real-time version of that, which we will be releasing at some point in the future. Today we announced that we have a cloud-based solution that does the emotional analysis of speech.
What is the utility? How is it going to be used in the real world?
Well, there's a myriad of examples and ideas behind this. One of the things that I demonstrated on the stage was detection of anger in my voice. Certainly everybody can relate to the fact that when you call a call center and you get put on hold, or you get aggravated because someone's not understanding you, or an automated attendant is just not responding to the way that you want it to respond, your voice may naturally start producing a bit more of a punch to it because you might be getting frustrated or angry. So that's one great way that companies that do that type of work can detect and do some intervention on a call before it gets out of hand. It's one example.
When we talk or think about the future these days, technology is usually the first thing that comes to mind. But as long as the human race endures, every aspect of our society and our being has a future, even happiness and well-being. But when we think about that future, we don't usually conjure up images of wearable devices to aid in keeping us on an even keel. But maybe now we should, as this speaker had to say.
With Amy Blankson, author of The Future of Happiness. Amy, what was the gist of your talk today in regards to well-being and how it's important going forward?
Awesome. So thanks, Mark. I'm speaking today here at the Affectiva conference about how the future of happiness starts today with the decisions we make about our lives, and that it's so incredibly important to combine technology with psychology and the cognitive revolution to understand what's happening in the deeper layers of our mind so that we can not just predict our behavior, but really begin to shape behavior in the future.
Now, I'm wearing a Fitbit on my watch, and it'll give me my steps and my heart rate, but it doesn't tell me my emotion. You said something about having tested out 400 different devices as part of writing your book. I wasn't even aware that there were any. 400. Tell us a little bit about that.
There are so many new gadgets, apps, devices hitting the market these days to begin to move out of just health, the health market, into the well-being market, looking at not just your fitness, but your overall well-being. So mood is a huge part of that, and I think that we're going to see more and more in the coming months, as we see here at the summit today, that there are, I believe, 20 different exhibitors showing new gadgets, apps, wearables that are just coming out today. So the market is huge, but it takes somebody to actually dig into the research to help you figure out what's legit, what's real, what's useful.
Do you think there's some loss of spontaneity if 10 years from now everybody's got a device that's monitoring and sending messages out about their mood? Is there what's gained, what's lost?
I think that Shakespeare best said it, that there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I'm of the mindset that when we are able to learn more about ourselves, that information is powerful. I do think that devices are going to become less and less invasive and intrusive in our lives, and that's going to be a crucial part of being able to seamlessly work through our lives as well.
Consumer insights and analytics was the subject of one of the panels in the morning sessions. It focused on how emotional AI can be used to moderate better customer service, as well as to better facilitate emotional attachment to brands and services. We now hear from one of the panelists, followed by the session moderator.
Robbie Minicola is global lead at Wonderman AI Services. You had some interesting things to say about what you're doing with emotional recognition. Could you summarize that just briefly?
Well, Wonderman is a global retention marketing agency, and we just launched our Wonderman AI Services, which is building conversational technologies whereby which brands using machines can talk with customers. And that can manifest as a virtual digital assistant, a chatbot, or a voice activation service.
So when you're happy or irritated, maybe Siri will understand that and react appropriately? Is that the idea?
Well, the whole idea is disintermediating Siri and Alexa, Google, and Cortana, and allowing brands to have their own virtual digital assistant, the voice of their brand. And the idea being that if you're talking with Progressive, you're talking with Flow. You're not talking with Siri or Alexa. Main reason is brands do not want platform VDAs to hear the conversations they have with their customers. So they're building their own conversational technology, and that's what we do. So emotion plays a very important role in that, because the emotion of the customer when they talk to the brand and the emotion of the brand's machine voice when it talks back to the customer is very important.
You said something about actually going back and listening to conversations and identifying so that there can be follow-up?
Well, no, it's not that the brands listen to the conversations of their customers. It's when the customer wishes to talk to the brand, then of course it's listening. When the customer's not speaking to the brand, it's not listening. Just like if I walk around my home, Alexa's not listening to what I say until I say Alexa, and then she wakes up. So if I'm using the Progressive example, if I was in my home and I had an accident with my car, I would say Flo, and then Flo would wake up and say, how can I help you? And just say, I just had an accident with my car. And atypically, Flo might say, without voice emotion, oh, well, then dial this number, or what was the problem? When typically, if Flo was really standing there, she'd go, oh my God, are you okay? And so it's not only the customer being able to convey emotion, which it will, and the machine adapting to that, but it's training the voice of the brand in a machine to also have emotion.
So this would be in an app, for example, or what would the platform be?
It could be in an application on a mobile browser, or it could be in a puck, just like the Amazon Echo, but not an Amazon Echo.
Natalie Mombio, SVP Futures, Samsung Starcom. What exactly is that?
Right. Okay. So I lead a new group at Starcom on behalf of Samsung, which is my client, called Futures, and it is a new role and a new team that I'm building, which is designed to look forward at the things that Samsung isn't doing today that it should be doing from a marketing perspective to grow the brand specifically in the US.
Summarize just a little bit what was covered in the session that you moderated today, and why is that important going forward?
Yeah. So I've believed for a very long time, and it's almost a truism in advertising, that an emotional connection is a way to a consumer's heart. I think that we've sort of forgotten that for a while. We kind of got lost in ad tech and kind of all the sort of machinations of ad tech, and I think now we kind of put our heads above the parapet and realize that we actually have the ability to identify and identify with people emotionally, leveraging the scalability of Emotion AI. And so what I found really fascinating in speaking with my panelists today is how they are embracing Emotion AI in their product. So Robbie, who's the president of Wonderman, has just set up a new AI division, is basically analyzing all the conversations from past customer calls to identify which emotions actually relate to business impact. So I think that's what's really fascinating, is actually aligning emotion with business results and then optimizing our communications to drive towards the right emotions or prevent the wrong ones from occurring. So I think that's really fascinating. And then when we're also looking in talking to Jeremy, thinking about these new interfaces such as augmented reality and virtual reality, which are kind of multi-spatial and inherently more emotional because the consumer's immersed in the experience. So Emotion AI becomes indispensable for proving out the value of those experiences. So those are some things that I've actually deeply interested in, but also had the opportunity to geek out on and to learn really from everybody here today. I think this is a very seminal moment in Emotion AI and where our industry is going.
The Jeremy that Natalie referred to is Jeremy Pincus, VP of Research and Development at Isobar, a digital marketing agency. He was also a participant in that panel. Using emotional AI to track and imprint consumer emotion is a sometimes controversial subject, evoking privacy issues, among other things. But it's probably here to stay, and we'll be hearing more about it in a future edition of Seeking Delphi. The afternoon sessions kicked off with a panel on the use of emotional AI in next-generation autonomous vehicles, better known as self-driving cars. Here's what one of those participants had to say.
Sanford Russell is Senior Director of Autonomous Driving Ecosystems for NVIDIA. What is an ecosystem in a car or a driving system?
So the way autonomous vehicles are being designed is that you have multiple different teams working on different problems. And what we've found is there's startups, there's higher education research, there's people that do things in-house, and people are building consortiums to solve the problem. So they'll bring in an HD mapping component. They'll bring in a path planning component. They'll have people who are experts in perception and segmentation. And that ecosystem can often be, each one of those, a different company. So the way we look at it is there's a few companies that are completely vertically oriented, and most companies are bringing in technology from outside. So that ecosystem, that group of companies and researchers working together, that's what we worry about.
How does the subject of today's seminar, which is emotionally intelligent systems, emotionally intelligent AI, how does that work into the whole future of autonomous driving?
So most people, when they think about autonomous driving, they're worried about the car. Where's the car going? How's it not hitting the bicyclist crossing the street sign, where the street sign is? What this is really about is more in-cabin. And so that's much more where emotion gets involved, where you're trying to understand, is the person happy? Are they confused? Is the car doing what they want it to do in the future? Meaning, I'd like to stop for an ice cream, but it goes to the wrong ice cream stand. My favorite one's to the right, and you went to the one that's left. So there's these little emotional components, no different than when you're the passenger in a car and the driver does something you don't expect, right? That happens with people all the time. It's likely to happen with an autonomous vehicle too, that there's a miscommunication. So understanding the person's intent and communicating it and having a fluid conversation, if you will, between the autonomous vehicle and yourself, that's all in cabin. There's also a component outside the car. University of California, Berkeley does some work on something called pedestrian intent. The person on the sidewalk, what are they about to do? Understanding what that is. So there's an emotional component there as well. Is the person facing the car? Do they look alert, happy, distracted? Right? So figuring out all these emotions, both in the vehicle and outside the vehicle, are components of making a really safe vehicle.
The next panel was entitled Powering the Next Wave of Engagement with Conversational Interfaces, and it featured, among others, the Media Lab's own Dr. Cynthia Brazil, who is also founder and CEO of Jibbo Incorporated, maker of what is billed as the world's first social robot for the home.
Cynthia Brazil, Associate Professor at MIT's Media Lab. Talk a little bit about what you had to say about social robotics, a phrase I've heard a lot, futurists have heard a lot, maybe a general audience hasn't heard a lot. Why is it important? What is it?
Yeah, so social robots are, it's a technology that comes from, the idea of kind of when you think about science fiction robots like R2-D2 and C-3PO. They are autonomous robots that have social and emotional intelligence that can help people as part of their daily lives. And they interact with us in a way that feels far more interpersonal, I would say, than how other technologies kind of treat us like technology, frankly.
How far has that progressed at this point? How far are we from having that R2-D2 experience?
Oh, well, it's going to take a long, long time to get to the full R2-D2 experience. But, the academic field has been around for about 20 years. You're starting to see the commercialization of these technologies right now. But it's at the very beginning. It's in the infancy, right? So I can't tell you how long it's going to take, but, it will be a journey, as these things always are.
Thanks.
Perhaps the most important and engaging panel was one on the future of ethics, morality, and the workforce as applies to AI. It included Heart of the Machine author Richard Yank, who has appeared previously on Seeking Delphi, Affectiva CEO Rana El-Kailoubi, and author John C. Havens. I'm with John Havens. He's the author of Artificial Intelligence. More importantly, is spearheading the major effort in terms of the ethics of artificial intelligence. Tell us about that, John.
Sure, thanks for asking. I'm working with IEEE, which is the world's largest technology association. About 100, it's in 160 countries, 500,000 members. And there's a program that I'm the executive director for called the IEEE Global AI Ethics Initiative. We also have a wonderful chair and a vice chair, so all three of us are like the officers. It was started in April of 2016 by IEEE to address this sort of terror of AI and say, rather than be terrified or sort of think that AI will solve every issue, let's create sort of a code of ethics and then standards to actually address these issues head on.
What about the problem specifically? One of the major ones, there were several addressed today, but in this brief couple of minutes, what's your feeling about the whole issue with jobs?
Like I mentioned in the big room there, there's a paradigm that, I'm 48, I've been used to since I was a kid, which is exponential growth and productivity in the sense that's embodied by the GDP. The GDP is not evil, that's not the point. It's a metric that prioritizes, because this is what it measures, largely only fiscal things like exponential growth, productivity. But humans are not just about productivity and money, right? So when you, however, are thinking about jobs in the future, to me, the question of what job might get replaced when is a question of semantics. Because if every company who wants to build something to replicate some aspects of what humans do is not hindered from doing that. And by the way, I'm not saying that they should be, but then mostly what they're focused on is, I have to report, if I want to IPO, exponential growth to my shareholders. When your priority is shareholder growth, etc., then jobs become a much different answer, because the only answer that a good CFO or whoever could give to her shareholders is X technology can do the work of humans. We can increase productivity by 40% and save X million of dollars by firing all employees. We can say that we feel bad about that, or that certain things won't get replaced, or that new jobs will be created. To me, it's not the right discussion to have. It's a paradigm level shift to say, does society want to keep people having jobs? Then you have to ask that question in terms of what are the bigger values beyond just productivity, and it's what's called the triple bottom line. Fiscal, we know, environmental, and then societal. Those three things at the same level of urgency and prioritization. That's the conversation I want to have about jobs in that environment.
To wrap up the summary of the content, the penultimate speaker was easily the most surprising, not just because of what she accomplished, but because of her age.
Erin Smith, you are an 18-year-old high school student from Overland Park, Kansas, and you just addressed 250 business and technology thought leaders on the stage of MIT Media Lab. How did you get to this point?
Yeah, so it was definitely like one of the craziest moments of my life. But I had the idea for an early diagnostic tool for Parkinson's disease about a year and a half ago. And then I started working with Affectiva and using their SDK to quantify these changes. And then through the work that I've continued, Rana invited me here to share my story.
So what exactly is this? This is an app that you've developed?
Yeah, so essentially I've been able to discover by quantifying and digitizing a series of early stage differences that occur in Parkinson's patients in terms of their individual muscle movements, and then also combinations of muscle movements that work together to form certain emotional responses.
Where else could this be used? Are you looking at any other conditions?
Yeah, so there's a lot of other neurological and neurodegenerative diseases where this has a lot of potential. And so some of the diseases that I'm really interested in focusing in next is PTSD and postnatal depression. I think there's a lot of strong untapped into potential with both of these diseases in terms of finding similar biomarkers and then also creating the diagnostic algorithms.
The closing keynote was delivered by a veritable rock star of the digital world, Media Lab co-founder and chairman emeritus Nicholas Negroponte. Afterwards, I spoke to Rana El-Kailoubi's Affectiva co-founder, Dr. Rosalind Picard, for her thoughts on what the program had accomplished.
Rosalind Picard, you are co-founder of Affectiva. This morning I asked your co-founder, Rana, what this was about, what it was going to be. Now that it's been, what's your takeaway? What was accomplished here today?
I thought this was a very inspiring day. It brought together many of the people who are working hard to build the future of AI in a way that shows more respect for humanity.
Any particular points in that you'd like to focus in on in terms of the respect issue?
Well, I was encouraged to hear several of the speakers talk about a real priority, maybe shifting from classics of emphasis on things like businesses just going after more productivity, and instead focusing on, people's well-being and what gives a worker dignity, and how might we reprioritize what matters in our society so that we care about people's work and not just about some number of how many things got done in a certain amount of time.
So how do you think Affectiva can kind of contribute to that? That's a key question.
Yeah. So Affectiva is in this beautiful space between something that used to not be measurable, human feelings, and the space of things that are measurable. They are enabling things that really matter to us, measuring meaning and feeling of real living human beings as we go about doing things. And that allows us to see things. For example, like if you present a new idea to a group of people, and maybe they feel like, oh, politically I need to say I like this idea. But if they're not smiling, they're not looking delighted, they're not really looking interested, in fact, they're smirking or they're looking like they're suppressing something negative, then maybe we need to dig a little deeper to understand. Maybe we have it wrong. Maybe we're not honoring people's feelings and what needs to be done. We need to listen to people's feelings.
Yeah, if I'm a speaker, I should be able to pick that up. How does artificial intelligence kind of expand that?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people think they're good at it and they're not.
I second Dr. Picard's motion, or should I say emotion, that the first Emotion AI Summit was indeed inspiring. My thanks to Affectiva for allowing me the opportunity to cover this event, and kudos to them for staging an informative, nuanced, and sensitive overview, not just of the potential benefits of Emotion AI, but also the difficult ethical issues around privacy, employment, and the like. In the weeks ahead, be listening for in-depth interviews with some of the presenters we heard today on future episodes of Seeking Delphi. Thank you for joining me. As always, my technical assistant is Mohammed Marouf. And until next time, I'm Mark Sackler.